And we're live. Good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 3rd of June, 2021, and you are live. We're live here on Mary Grace Media, Real Talk with Mary Grace. Good to see everybody here. I hope everybody's having a good day. Are we on? uh, is YouTube lagging again? Looks like we're having a lag. I'm Mary Grace, Real Talk with Mary Grace. Come on in, share this. Okay, here we go. Looks like people are starting to come in. So, we've got a great show lined up today. There's things are happening. Did you notice? For all the nothing is happening crowd, I think you may be changing your tune today. So, come on in. Hey, Mary Wingard. Working on YouTube. Good, 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 good. Somebody says hello to Barley. Barley's been quiet today. Um, I think it's because I fished out about 10 of his toys from under the stove. So he's been really busy chasing around toys that he forgot about. He was pretty happy about that. All right, looking at the chat here, please share this. So let's get this out. Please tag people that you know on Facebook, tag friends, family, coworkers. Also, share this into bigger groups. I really appreciate it when you do that. It's very helpful when you do that. Let me fix my set here. Okay, that's better. So share this out, tag people, and then on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up and then subscribe. And then, understatement of the century. Dr. Death is in big trouble from Mary Wingard on Facebook. Yes, absolutely. Okay. As I was saying, hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up, hit the bell so you don't miss a show. And let's get this show on the road because we've got some very interesting things to share today. And I wanted to start by telling you that I saw an interview today that came across my YouTube, and it was an interview that was done years ago by Catherine Coleman. She was interviewing a woman named Corrie ten Boom. Have you ever heard of Corrie ten Boom? Let me see in the chat who knows who that is. Anybody over the age of 40 most likely knows who that is. So let me know if you know who that is. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her because she and her family were just a family of watchmakers in Holland during World War II. And they were private citizens. They were just, going about their business. And they had a higher calling and a higher belief about what their purpose in life was. And that was really just to serve God and to be a light of Christ to anybody that came in their door. And she learned a lot from her father. It's the book that she wrote about her experience during that time is called The Hiding Place. I recommend it 100%. And it was made into a movie at one time back when they were making really good movies. So I think that can somebody remind Paul and Facebook about what we're doing with certain words that we type in the chat or not type in the chat so that we don't get censored? That would be great. Thank you. Okay. Let me go back to Corrie ten Boom. So I wanted to talk about this because she was being interviewed by Catherine Coleman, and I haven't even gotten through the whole thing. I was crying within the first 10 minutes because she's just such a beautiful, beautiful reminder of who we are, who we're called to be, and what's really important. And with the revelations that we have coming out, right now, and the things that we're going to be learning, a lot of us already know some of it. A lot of us have suspected that there are people who are guilty of things that are as bad, if not worse, than than atrocities that were done during that regime. Okay, so I think it's important because I don't know about you, but the feelings that I have over the last 24 hours is since learning about learning the truth and seeing in print some of the actions of the sociopath, the 4-foot sociopath, um, homicidal maniac. I don't know about you, but I don't have charitable thoughts toward that person. I find myself thinking about the things that I would like to see done to him and to those around him, and they're not good things, and not even close. And so, yeah, so just a reminder, if you're going to talk about Real 45, just use Real 45. Don't write out the name, okay, because it gets us censored. If you did that, please edit it or delete and start a new comment. It really makes a difference, okay? Um, so so here's the thing. I think that we're all feeling that way. I think that we all, our instincts are kicking in, and we like to do a whole lot more than throat punch certain people. I think that you know what I'm talking about. And so, what do we do with that? How do we deal with that? How do we navigate this? And it's hard. It's a hard place to be in, um, as a Christian. Okay, and so I think that we really want to. I think we really want to dig deep and take some time in prayer, um, and really get right. Make sure that we're right with God in our heart about how we're handling what we're finding out. Um, and so Corrie Ten Boom is an example for us because she watched her family get exterminated uh, by the Nazi regime. Okay, and she was with her sister, in the bed the night that she died in a camp, and it was heartbreaking, right? And she watched, the abuse that was uh, that was meted out by the people who were just doing their job day in and day out, and she continued to be a light for Christ in the darkest moments of history, of modern history. And, one of the things that she said in her book was, "There is no pit so deep that the love of God is not deeper still." And I think that it's so important to understand and to, if you haven't read the story, if you haven't heard her story, go and look and understand what they went through. Um, if you have, read it again, because she really is a spiritual mother to all of us because of what she went through. And so I just really wanted to encourage you, because the way that she was able to come to forgiveness in her heart is something that we all, I believe, are going to need to be able to embrace. And it's hard because right now my heart hurts. I don't know about you. It's so hard to read these emails that have been released from the FOIA request. And if you're in the chat, can you guys, I'm going to type out the name of the person that we're talking about. Um, okay. Okay, so I think everybody can see that name. That's a name that they censor. So that's why I'm not saying his name. Okay, the 4-foot sociopath. And so, the decisions that he made and the recommendations that he made were based on complete and total lies. 100% complete and total lies. He knew the truth. He had the truth presented to him on many, many fronts. And he completely, in some cases, covered it up. In some cases, just outright dismissed it, whether it had to do with protecting the vulnerable versus locking down the healthy, whether it had to do with wearing a face diaper or not, the efficacy of those, whether it had to do with the origins of the plague. This is just I didn't think that there was anybody in modern times in the 20th century and beyond that was worse than Hillary Clinton in terms of being like a homicidal sociopath. But I actually, I think I think he's got her beat. I really do. I don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah, and the whole thing about the fact that he convinced the whole planet that you can be sick without actually having a disease, and that everyday people would look at you as a vector for disease if you refused to put a face diaper on and stop breathing fresh air. That they managed to convince the planet that that I, who have a robust immune system and am really, really healthy, could be carrying a disease. I mean, most of us didn't believe it. I'm talking about the sheep, okay? And from what I'm hearing, from what I'm hearing, especially from watching George News, I do believe that at some point the legacy media is going to be forced to cover this. Real 45 has put out some statements today that I think are very interesting. But there was something even more interesting that I noticed with Real 45, and I wanted to show you this because I don't know who else noticed this. If you go on to George News on Telegram, and you go on to George News on Telegram, prior to up until May 31st, 2021, the header on the statements that were put out by Real 45 looked like this. Okay, you're going to have to look. So if you're driving, pull over and look at this because I'm not going to read it. It's the part that's in red. Okay, you see that? I want you to read that. Okay, so look at the title that he's given there, 45th of the United States. Okay, you see that? So look at that. And then look at how it looks as of June 1st. Does anybody notice anything different? So the first one, he was called the 45th. And on this one, it's just simply his title, which is really his rightful title, because we know that Faker 46 stole it. Did anybody else notice that? Am I the only one that noticed that? The difference in the headings? Every single statement that's come out by him since that day, since the 1st of June, has that header now. And so there's nothing former about it. It's titled, yeah. So it's interesting. Now I want to read you something that he said today. I thought it was so good. Okay, let me read it. Here we go. Okay, this is the most recent one. I think this is really good. Carrie, if you look on the George Telegram, the headings on the ones on the George Telegram are what I just showed. Now there's another Telegram room that's using the other heading, but I think the George ones are the most accurate. I noticed the change though, so it's very interesting. So Paul on Facebook has a question. I'm going to come back to that because I want to focus on this particular topic right now. Okay. But thank you for changing the wording. I appreciate it. Let's see. This is his statement today from Bedminster. And statement by okay. So statement by Real 45, 45th President of the United States. Okay. So I'm talking of so the heading itself is different. But let me read this. He says, "Now everyone, even the so-called enemy, are beginning to say that President Trump was right about the China virus coming from the Wuhan lab. The correspondence between Dr. Death," he uses the other word, "and China speaks too loudly for anyone to ignore." This is the part I love. Um, China should pay $10 trillion to America and the world for the death and destruction they have caused. $10 trillion. I'll look at it again, Carrie. Maybe I'm just reading something into it. Maybe it's wishful thinking. $10 trillion. How about that? That's a lot of money. China should pay $10 trillion. Now, there's another statement that he put out before this, but I wanted to touch on something here because do you remember last week when I was talking about the different social media platforms and how I thought that there was a good chance that Real 45 would actually come back on those platforms, and that maybe he doesn't have to create something from scratch, because part of the asset seizure of people and entities that had conspired to commit treason against our country would be the social media and the media outlets. And I'm this is conjecture on my part. But if you think about who has been really running the show at those networks, and you also think about who has been uh, taking control over many assets in our nation, including real estate. They've bought up a ton of real estate. That's China. And you think about that, and then you think about the executive orders, Executive Order 13818 and Executive Order 13848. Those executive orders have to do with seizing assets of people involved in uh, treason against the country, and the not only individuals but um, leaders and companies and nations, and then also involved in crimes against humanity. So I think the people that we're dealing with here, it pretty much covers the whole gamut. And so, when Real 45 says that they should give us $10 trillion, that's probably just a starting point, to be honest. And you know, I don't know that they're going to have a choice in the matter. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's something that I think is important to consider as we move ahead here. And if you remember last year when he was doing those briefings that everybody was watching, the task force briefings, and he was talking about stimulus money. Do you remember that when he was having those talks and he had Steve Mnuchin and Peter Navarro out there, and they were talking about uh, budgeting and sending money to the American people? And there was one talk that they had. I think it was when he was coming into the second round and they were trying to negotiate it. He said something interesting that some people may not have caught. I caught it and I mentioned it on the show, but they were talking about budgeting and they were saying it's going to cost this much and we could spend this much and we could do this. And he goes, and he was really kind of flip. And he said, oh, well, we have the money. And I mean, we're talking trillions of dollars. And this is Mr. Budget. I mean, do you remember when he was talking about making a new Air Force One and he was going to cancel the contract because it was too expensive? And then do you remember when he was going to put the new embassy in Jerusalem? And he said it was too much money, and so he wanted a new plan, a new proposal. And so that's his MO, right? He really is very focused on doing things ahead of schedule and under budget. And when you go to a rally and he'll say things like he'll comment on how expensive the jumbotron was. This is our guy, okay? This is a guy that is talking about um, that kind of thing, right? And then for him to say willy nilly about trillions of dollars, oh, yeah, we have the money. I, I was thinking at the time, and I did talk about this on my show last year, like, where is that money coming from? And I think that it was because he knew where the money was coming from because we already have these assets, or we know that we're going to have control of these assets. And so I think, of course, he doesn't usually ask questions or say things unless he already knows the answer. And so when he says, they should pay $10 trillion to America and the world for the death and destruction they have caused. I mean, those are fighting words for one, and they're also if he's saying that, my opinion, and based on my experience of him, is that he already knows that that's going to happen, if not more. I don't know. What do you think about that? That's my instinct about that. And so I want to read you the part of the statement that he said before because I just think it's hilarious. And this is um I think this is really funny. So, he's talking about um he says, after seeing the emails, our country is fortunate I didn't do what Dr. Death wanted me to do. And there's so many nuances here. Okay. After seeing the emails, who here thinks that this is the first time he ever got wind of these communications? Does anybody remember NSA and Admiral Rogers? Do you think that this is like the first time he's seeing this? I don't know. Can you imagine? Oh, golly, gee, let me see these emails. Huh, that's so interesting. God, wow, good thing. Yeah, wow, good thing you guys showed me this, before I spent the last year not listening to Dr. Death and his recommendations. So, anyway, I just think it's so funny. After seeing the emails, our country is fortunate that I didn't do what Dr. Death wanted me to do. For instance, I closed our borders to China very early, despite his not wanting them closed. The Democrats and the fake news media even called me xenophobe. In the end, we saw this was a life saving decision, and likewise with closing our borders to Europe, specifically to certain heavily infected countries. I was later given credit, even by Tony. I love that in quotes, by Tony, for saving hundreds of thousands of lives. Dr. Death also didn't put an emphasis on speed of the treatment production because he thought it would take 3, 4, maybe even 5 years to create. I'm going to interject here and tell you my thoughts on this are that, remember, if Real 45 had not called his bluff and done warp speed, there would have been tens of millions of people, and the world would have been on complete and total lockdown forever. We would have completely lost the country totally. And then when it did get created, when they did come up with it, it would have been mandatory. And we would be talking about hundreds of millions of deaths. Okay. Just keep that in mind. Let's not get waylaid. Let's not go down that rabbit trail of thinking that Real 45 is part of the deep state because he's talking about this thing, experimental thing. Okay. There's a bigger story here. Now, okay, so Dr. Death said that we were going to drag it out, but then here we go. I got it done in less than 9 months with Operation Warp Speed. In retrospect, the thing is saving the world. Now, he said this before. It's saving the world. There's a bigger message here. We don't know all the details, but I can tell you that he's talking about something much bigger than something people put in their arm. Okay? You just got to go with some faith here. Then I placed the greatest bet in history. We ordered billions of dollars worth of the thing before we even knew it worked. It's just interesting. There's something going on. Had that not been done, our wonderful things would not have been administered until October of this year. This year. The Jabberwocky. I like that. Okay. this year. Think about this, guys. You would have been on lockdown. Your business would be absolutely devastated. Your kids would still be out of school. Nothing would have been open. Life as you ever knew it before would be completely ruined. All right. So just remember that. Had that not been done, our wonderful Jabberwockies would not have been administered until October of this year. No one would have had the Jabberwocky that has now saved the world and millions of lives. The world. Saved the world. I don't know about you guys. I think he's talking about more than a Jabberwocky. Okay, so stick with me here. There's more. Now, also, Dr. Death, Tony, was totally against masks when even I thought they would at least be helpful. He then changed his mind completely and became a radical masker. I love that so much. I mean, does that just not don't you just love his humor? A radical masker. I mean, who would say that? Has anybody come up with that term? He's a radical masker. Like, no, you got to wear 2, you got to wear 3. I love that so much. I laughed out loud when I read that. A radical masker. Next time somebody comes at you, you'd be like, okay, just stop it. I'm not going to be a radical masker like you. You're a radical masker. You're a radical masker. I just love it. I think it's hilarious. He really does. Like, he's so savage. I want somebody to meme that, especially because they call us radicals, right? They call us extremists, all of this. And so he just throws it back on him all the time. I just think it's hilarious. Okay. And then there are a lot of questions, and then he pivots back to the really hard stuff. There are a lot of questions that must be answered by Dr. Death. The funding of Wuhan by the US was foolishly started by the Hussein administration. He uses the other word, but in 2014, but ended under the Real 45 administration. When I heard about it, I said, no way. Again, laughing. And in quotes, no way. Have you guys read this? Are you hearing it for the first time? I just think it's hilarious. When I heard about it, I said, no way. He's like a teenager. Is he hanging out with Barron? So, oh my goodness, so funny. When I heard about it, I said, no way. What did Dr. Death know about gain-of-function research, and when did he know it? These are some big comms here. I just think it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Okay, I'm going back to what I want to go back to something Carrie said, because now I'm looking at my screenshots here of the heading, and I think I may have been wrong about this. So, oh no. So the one that I showed, yeah, they weren't. He wasn't using that 45th designation. So maybe he's mixing it up. But the heading has changed. The whole heading. There's something different about it. Okay. So, all right, now that I got that, it's no longer bugging me. So, that's those statements. I think there's so much packed into that. And, there are a ton of, there's just a ton of gold. And I think that people really need to start digging, go find the emails, dig through. But here's the thing. If you're in a business, or if you have a child that's being still told that they have to wear the face diaper, I want you to print out the email that he wrote to his colleague in February of 2020, explaining exactly why they aren't warranted for healthy people and why you shouldn't wear them, especially the ones that come from the store, because he explains it in detail. And so I want you to print that out, and I want you to send it to the powers that be and say, enough is enough. This is right here. This is the science. Okay. Enough. We're done. We're not doing it anymore. And So I encourage you to do that because, yeah, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And so take that. And then the other thing, of course, is that he completely and totally 100% glossed over the I did put it on Telegram. It's in my Telegram room. So if you go in Telegram and you go to the top of the screen, you have to click on links and or images. All right. So I did it this morning. Um, so you can go check. Okay. Now, the other thing though that really is just infuriating is that countless doctors from the very beginning said the thing that made the most sense, which is, hey, let's protect the vulnerable. And there's even a name for that. It's called focused protection. Let's focus our protection on the people that are actually proven to be the most at risk for getting the plague and dying from it. That would be the elderly and the immune compromised. That's it. The people that have really high risk. And so uh, think about that, right? He had people writing to him. He had people in his own department writing to him and laying out the case for this. And there's a letter that is going around from the FOIA request that shows his letters, his emails. And this person went to the trouble to email him and explain and say, hey, why don't we look at this option? And this was on the 14th of March. So this was the day after the whole country went into the 15 days, right? We just need 15 days. Just give us 15 days. Just 15 days. That's all we need. Right? And then like what day are we on? Has anybody Delia, what day are we on? Are we on day 460, 475? Seriously. But he ignored it. He just wrote back to the guy and said, "Thanks for your note." Can you imagine being dismissed that way? This is the kind of hubris that we're dealing with. I mean, like I said, homicidal sociopath midget. This person has no regard for you, your family, your business, anything that matters to America. Nothing. Nothing. He's a monster. And so, yeah, it's insane. And there's an entire post on Telegram, and there's a bunch of stuff that I shared in my Telegram today. So make sure you go there and look. Mary Grace Media Official on Telegram. Let's see. Yeah, he hates all of us. We never should have given him one day. That's absolutely true. Okay, never, ever again. Oh gosh, I wonder if they deleted that post. Let me see. That's weird. It looks like it might have been deleted. Let me see if it's in my Telegram here. Meanwhile, Mike Lindell is producing a whole bunch of new content. Yeah, blood on his hands, that's for sure. Yeah, the way that this man functions is really textbook abuse. So if you're wondering if you might be in an abusive relationship, just look at the way that this person, the way that the narrative went over the last year. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You're a horrible person if you don't. You're a monster for wanting to breathe fresh air, like messing with your mind like that and gaslighting you. If you're in a relationship with somebody like that, it's a bad relationship. It's an abusive relationship. Day 447. Thank you, Delia. I knew that you would know. So, yeah, we're on day 447 of just give us 15 days to slow the spread. Yeah. Okay. Deb on Facebook. I have to read this comment. Saw a lady at the store bragging that she got the Jabberwocky. She had a mask on. I told her, thank goodness, because you are now a biohazard. She was not impressed. LOL. That's so awesome. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, the other thing too about the abuser is they paint themselves as the victim. How many times has Dr. Death done that? How many times has he accused members of Congress of attacking him just by asking him to tell the truth? Oh, and it turns out they were right. Hey, Dr. Death, were you funding those studies over in China? No, how dare you accuse me of that? You're so mean. Turns out they were right. But that's what they do. That's the behavior. That's abuser behavior, right? They turn themselves into the victim. So I mean, he's taken great delight in perpetrating and watching and witnessing the suffering of people all over the world based on his sociopathic behavior. And these people love watching it, and then they turn themselves into the victim when you call them out on it. It's classic. It's just classic abuser behavior. So really, I'm serious, guys. Take a close look at this, because this is a textbook example. And so, if you're in a relationship like that, take my advice and get out. I'm serious. Couldn't be more serious right now. Okay. So let me tell you about these doctors. Okay, let me tell you about the doctors. So these are the doctors that that went into great depth to explain to you why the policies that were pushed by Dr. Death and Scarf Lady were actually damaging. One of them was Dr. Scott Atlas, and one of them was Dr. J. Bhattacharya. I think that's the way you say it. Professor Martin Kulldorff. Did I miss some? Okay, there were a lot more. So it's pinned in my Telegram. So there's quite a few, and there were thousands of them that signed this declaration in opposition to what this sociopath was recommending. And the thing is, diabolical. That's such a good word, Delia. Yeah, diabolical, homicidal sociopath. Does anybody want to add anything to that? Michelle had an interesting comment. She said, unfortunately, Dr. Foul Cheese had to be exposed naturally, or the sleepers would never have believed it. That's true. Yeah, I mean, right now, we have articles, editorials coming out in the New York Times, and unfortunately, for some of the people that we know, that's the only way to get a message across to them, is if it's in something that they trust. And that's unfortunate. But even then, sometimes you can't get through because they have so much confirmation bias. They won't even believe the truth when you put it right in front of their eyes. So those are some of the things. Oh, narcissistic. Okay, so here we go. Narcissistic, diabolical, narcissistic, sociopath, homicidal, sociopath. What else? I'm going to write that down. Diabolical, narcissistic, homicidal, 4-foot sociopath. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So whack job. We'll just call him whack job, Dr. Death, the whack job. Okay. But you get my point. I mean, this is just, it's unfathomable, the depths of the depravity here. And going back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, when you look at somebody like Corrie ten Boom, and you hear her story, and you read, her story, and you listen to this interview of where her heart was and all of this, it is, it's just, it definitely puts things into perspective. I mean, I feel like I have I feel like we're getting a tiny glimpse of what it was like to go through. I mean, a tiny glimpse. I'm not comparing my life right now to what she went through, but a tiny glimpse of, well, for example, what Real 45 perhaps saved us from. That's one way to look at it. So those of you who, again, who are upset about the Jabberwocky and about him pushing that, I want you to think about this story, about the real history of the last century, of what happened in the 30s and 40s in the world, um, and just the evil that was perpetrated there. I mean, we're not even talking about what Stalin did. That was like 10 million people. Think about that. I want you to think about it, because when we think about her story and we think about what she survived, um, it gives you some perspective on what Real 45 perhaps was looking at when he made the decisions that he made. And again, they're not all popular decisions, but in war, sometimes you have to choose the least popular decision in order to save more lives. It's a real war that we're in, and I think some people still don't realize that. They still don't have a perspective or an awareness that we are at war, and that the people that are um, that the people that are fighting, they're not going to stop. These rat bastards that have tried to take over the whole world, they're not stopping. They're going to fight to the death. This is a zero sum game for them. And so when you look at everything that's going on and you think to yourself, oh, this isn't happening, or I'm so tired of this, when is this going to be over? That's such an immature way of looking at things. I sometimes, I see people all the time on social media and in chats and in Telegram saying things like that, and I think, what are you for? I mean, do you not understand the extent of what is happening here, and what potentially could have happened over the last year had it not been for Real 45? This is what I'm talking about. I really, it's so important for people to get perspective here and to understand that we are at war. You don't put a clock on war. I mean, nobody's going to be able to say to you, including Real 45, because of the operatives and the operations involved, and the extent and the complexity of what's going on here. And there's so many players, there's so many battlefields, there's so many fires happening all the time. It's absolutely immature, and I would go so far to say as selfish, to sit there and to say, "Oh, that's it. I'm done. I just, when is this going to be over? I just can't take it one more day. You know, Nothing's happening. Everybody, when is this just going to be over? I'm just done." It's like people think they're watching a movie and that we're just going to roll the credits on your command. I mean, can you see how dumb that sounds? Like, think about it. Step out of your body for a minute and listen to yourself, and think about how dumb that sounds. I mean, a grown up saying, this is just, I'm tired of this and we need to wrap this up. Okay, uh, armchair warrior, keyboard warrior. Okay, what's your solution? What's your plan? What would you have done? How would you have saved the world when faced with the choices that Real 45 had? I'm just saying, it's time for some perspective here, isn't it? And I'm not talking about you right now that are watching. You may know people who are. I don't really see it as much in my chat because I think I've nipped it in the bud, I hope. But I see it throughout these Telegram threads. I see it all the time. Um, so I just think that, it's time for perspective. Okay. And the people that came at us and thought that they won, I believe that they're coming to an awareness right now that perhaps they're on the losing side of this war. That's what I believe. Okay. Vicky on YouTube says, I know it seems simpleton, but we are and have been spoiled in a land of blessings and plenty. Uh, um, when the going gets rough is when we do find out what our faith in God particularly is made of. I think that's true. And, part of the reason that we're in the situation we're in is because we've gotten soft and we've allowed the enemy to infiltrate the whole country and the world, and to bring in we got very close to having them um, enact the Great Reset. And so thank God that they didn't succeed. Okay. I really think that's it, but it's not over. And so it's not over. And so that's the important thing to understand. And here's the thing too, that when Real 45 is back, when we have dancing in the streets and victory, this is so important to understand, is that we have to do everything possible to keep it, and to make it even stronger, and to dig the foundation deeper than it was before. Because look what happened in just over 100 years from the end of World War II. A little from the end of not even 100 years, guys. Where's my math? Okay. The World War II ended in the 40s, right? And then here we are in 2021. So, not even 100 years. And the generations that fought in that war, those people are still alive. And here we are fighting it again. Can you imagine being one of those soldiers that lived through that liberated the Germans, that liberated the prisoners from those camps, seeing what's going on today and thinking, why did I go through that? They're allowing it. They're just, this is rinse and repeat of what we fought. Think about that. Okay. Yeah, the courage is building, and teabag by teabag, that tea is getting tossed out of the ships again, one mask at a time. Every day, more sleepers awaken. I think that's true. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So, let's keep fighting for sure. Let me just read your comments here. 76 years. Thank you, Delia. Delia's like my walking abacus here. Thank you. Mental math while I'm doing a show and reading comments, not my lane. Okay. So, but the point is, think about that. I mean, just a few generations down the road, we're dealing with this again because of what we allowed to get into all of the mountains of influence in our nation, in the world. That should be sobering. That should be a massive, sobering wake-up call for every human being on the planet. Doesn't it? And I think what we're coming into, I hope, is a time where we are squashing the powers that have perpetuated those wars for all of this time. That's a big part of what we're doing, and that's a big part of what the white hats have been involved in. And because it has to be what comes out of this, all of this, and not just the plague, but the big lie, the massive theft that took place at the ballot box. Everything that comes out of this has to have a lasting impact far beyond what the victory that we won in other wars. This is a completely different playing field. There is a completely different objective. The players are different because in the past, I think that most of the players that were fighting were actually on the same team. And what do I mean by that? Like, you think about Congress, you think about, all the noise they make about, this party versus that party. And then it turns out they're all pretty much the uniparty. It doesn't matter. They just trade off year after year, putting their guy or their gal in power. That's all they do. And one of the things that I realized when I was starting to get deeper into campaigns, and I told you this last week, some of you weren't listening because you were distracted by another conversation, but I'm going to say it again, is that the way that they run campaigns is that campaign managers are pretty much mercenaries, and they jump from one campaign to the other, and they jump from one campaign to the other, and they actually use like all the same election vendors. So if you're, regardless of what letter you have after your name, it's very interesting when you look at the FEC reports, because you'll see that candidate A and candidate B from different parties actually have the same website company running their websites and their social media. Go look. If you doubt me, just go look through the FEC filings of the 2018 midterms or the 2020 congressional and senatorial campaigns. I'm not making this up. And so what I'm saying to you, and the point that I'm making, is that over all of these years, the people that we thought were fighting for us were actually our enemy. and they have been manipulating the narrative worldwide for centuries or for decades to make you think that this person is your enemy, that this person, because of this belief, is your enemy, that your neighbor is your enemy, when really it's the person, the people, the entities that are driving this narrative that are the enemy. And so what's happening right now with this great awakening is that neighbors are coming together with neighbors and having an awakening and realizing, wait a minute, we don't all believe the same thing, but we don't actually hate each other, and we don't want to fight each other. We actually want to be neighbors. But those people in the idiot box are telling us that we're supposed to hate each other because of different political ideology, and that we're supposed to be having a war against each other because my skin is a different color from your skin, which I didn't even really care about until they told us that we were supposed to. And our kids certainly don't care. What's happening is that people are actually starting to wake up to that, to realize that the narrative has been manipulating people into thinking that their neighbor is the enemy. And all this time, it's the people pushing the narrative that is really the enemy. And that is what I believe when Real 45 talks about the hidden enemy. That's what I believe he's talking about. And so the awakening that's happening is a beautiful thing, because it is going to solidify and and uh, put a foundation that's way deeper than any of them could ever have imagined. That's what they're so scared of. Okay. Uh, Michelle has an interesting theory on YouTube. Patrice, would you mind erasing that word on your YouTube comment? The one that starts with T. We're trying to get past the censorship on here. Okay, so let's see. She says, I believe Dr. Foul Cheese is the snake, the Jabberwocky is the bite, but 45 has the anti-venom, and soon this will be fixed. That's interesting. Huh. Okay. Vicky, I think that you can have more faith in the white hats than you think you can. Okay. And here's the thing I want you to take note of, is that the white hats are also us. The patriots The people that are making the difference and that are rising up and that are taking back this country. That's you, that's me. That's people in Arizona who are demanding these audits. That's the people, the delegation from Pennsylvania that came and toured the audit in Arizona. These are people. These are moms in Iowa who went and fought the school board to get the face diapers off their children and went all the way to the governor and got a bill signed into law to prevent that from happening again. Those are white hats. You're a white hat. If you're watching this show and you don't hate me and you're not against me here, you're a white hat. Okay. So, and one of the things that we're learning through this process is that we can't sit around and just wait for somebody else to do this, to figure it out. It's up to us. We're the ones. This is our country, and so we're the ones who are learning and being called forth to the calling to maintain and rebuild upon the foundations that our founding fathers put into place. And speaking of founding fathers, I wanted to show you something. I thought this was really interesting because it puts things in perspective. So this is, I want to read some names to you. Marquis de Lafayette, James Monroe, Henry Lee III, Nathan Hale, Aaron Burr, Alexander Hamilton. So you know who those guys are, right? So this is interesting because I want to read you their ages in 1776. Okay. Lafayette, 18 years old. James Monroe, 18. Henry Lee III, 20. Nathan Hale, 21. Aaron Burr, 20. Alexander Hamilton, 21. Now, let me tell you, they knew enough to own weapons. They all had jobs. They lived on their own. They were financially independent. They didn't need safe spaces to hide from politically incorrect people. Think about that. Okay. Comment. We have always had the power, we just didn't know it. And, if you go back to the original inauguration, and this is one reason that I encourage you to go and watch the George News videos on YouTube and listen to the actual videos. The original inauguration from 2017, the speech that he gave was really important because when he went up to take the oath, the military all stood behind him, and I don't think that's ever happened before. And he said, we're not just transferring power from one political party to the other. He spelled it out. He told you what they've been doing for years. We're not just transferring power from one political party to the other. We are transferring power back to the people. So what do you think that he's been doing for the past 5 years? What do you think that he's still working on? What do you think has been taking place over the past year since the plague got a foothold and people started to wake up? Okay. So just something to think about. All right. Before I forget, I want to share that interview with Catherine Coleman into the Telegram. It's so powerful. Now, listen, I've never watched Catherine Coleman before. She's very much she's one of the heroes of the faith, especially in the spirit-filled movement. And I got to tell you, she's really dramatic. So when you watch her doing the interview, when she comes out at the beginning of the interview, don't be put off by that. I mean, she's super hyper dramatic, okay? And it's a little bit funny, but don't let that put you off because the interview with Corey Ten Boom is so powerful. And I really want people to see this and to be encouraged by it, okay? Uh, Catherine Coleman. Let me see if I spelled it right. Let's see. What are we doing here? Catherine, Kuhlman. Hold on. Interviews. Corey ten Boom. Okay, there it is. It is in my Telegram. So please go and watch that. Somebody on Facebook said, yes, when I was standing there in that third session, I noticed that he said his whole first, middle, and last name, and they did not say that for the predecessor. They left out the predecessor's middle name. Interesting. Okay. She's controversial. Well, I guess that's a matter of opinion. The interview is really good, so I would just move past whatever feelings you have about her because the interview with Corey ten Boom is really good. Don't let that stop you. Okay. My parents were both saved under Catherine Coleman. There you go. Okay. When I was young, I attended a teaching session she did in Tulsa. I stood within 3 feet of her. Yeah, she's odd. She's very odd. Okay. So, was it Corey ten Boom or Catherine? I don't think Corey's that odd. I think Catherine Coleman's odd. So anyway, I put it in and you can watch it if you want. Okay. So checking the comments here. Let me just check my email. See, I've gotten some emails from people about superfoods, and I want to see if anybody else has emailed. Make sure you get in touch with me. It's info@marygracemedia.com if you want to get superfoods. We're on a superfoods revolution. We are having an amazing time. So many people are getting on superfoods. So many people's lives are getting changed. People are getting healthier. I have the best testimonials from people and myself included. So if you're dealing with aches and body aches, joint pain, inflammation, autoimmune, you're wanting to lose weight, you need more energy, you have trouble sleeping, get these superfoods. Get in the superfoods because it's really hard to get good nutrition into your body. And what we have um, is so pure, and it's made in America and delivered right to your door. And it's absolutely life changing. Delia has been on superfoods. It's almost a year now, Delia. Can you believe that? Uh, and she's lost over 60 pounds on the superfoods. Please email me to get a promo code so that you can save over $100 on your first order. It's info@marygracemedia.com. And then when you do order, make sure you set up something called a smart order so that you can continue to get discounts and bonus rewards points. It's kind of like when you order on Amazon, you have like that subscribe thing, same thing. So, yeah, 95 people watching, only 10 likes. Are you kidding me? Hit the thumbs up, guys. Hit the thumbs up. Come on. Okay, yeah. So info@marygracemedia.com. Can somebody include that in the text so I can copy that and search in my browser called Brave? Bugs, you just need to email me. So it's info@marygracemedia.com. We don't put complete links in the chat because the socialist media people hate it. Okay. Okay. They do. So you have to take out the word dot and you have to change it so you can put in the whole thing. Okay. So thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, subscribe. What else? Hit the notifications. Oh, go to my website, marygracemedia.com. And if you don't want to, if you buy superfoods, it actually supports the show. I will tell you that. It's a win-win because you get healthier, you get your family healthier, and then it also supports the show. If you go to marygracemedia.com and click on support, That also is a way that you can support the show. You can partner with me there. Some of you guys do that, and I super appreciate that. Um, and it definitely helps. Like all the gear, the equipment, the internet, everything that I do to put on the show, it costs money. So if you want to support, you can do that. You can do like a $5 a month thing, um, or just do superfoods because then that way you're actually getting more than just content. You're getting food. Um, okay. So, oh, Michelle said, I forgot to tell you the first time in years, Mary Grace, my kidney function is now within normal range. Wow, that's amazing. So, this is somebody that's been on superfoods for not even a year. This is just amazing what we have, guys. It's really it's not a diet, it's not a gimmick. It's just real food, and it's help your body learns how to reset itself. And I think it tastes great. It's awesome. Okay, Patrice said Corey spent her last 5 years in Placentia. Her caretaker wrote a book about her final years. That's cool. I really like listening to her. She just oozes the love of God all over, right? It's amazing. She's the real deal. Okay, so listen, I'll be back on Monday at 5:30 Eastern. Keep an eye out for my Telegram because that is where if the George News comes on, if they do a live stream, which they sometimes do, and then you want to go watch the live chat, I will share those to Telegram. I would just keep an eye out on my Telegram anyway because I'm sharing lots of stuff as we're having breaking news. The other thing that I would recommend is that Steve Bannon over at War Room is doing an amazing job. Steve Bannon and Raheem Kassam, Natalie Winters, they're doing a really good job of digging into the details of a lot of the stuff that's going on, including the emails of Dr. Death, and then also the the grand theft election, the big also known as the big lie. So make sure you're following them. They are on America's Voice TV. I think that's the website, America's Voice TV. Okay, got you. Okay, you sent me an email. Awesome. Just over 10 months. So Delia's been on superfoods for just over 10 months. She was one of my first customers when we started talking about superfoods last June. That was amazing. Yeah, it's almost a year since I started telling everybody about superfoods because everybody was having a hard time getting to the grocery store a year ago. Do you remember that? And when we started finding out what was in the food and what was in the medications that people were taking and how disgusting it was, and it was a huge awakening. Okay, so listen, I'm going to sign off here. I will be back. Make sure you're following me right here on YouTube and Facebook and CloutHub channel 111. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube to my Telegram channel, Mary Grace Media Official. And I will be back on Monday at 5:30 Eastern. Everybody have a great weekend and take care.